Thank you for joining us tonight and welcome to the Northwest Consumer Law Center webinar series, How to Survive the Financial Impacts of COVID-19. Today's webinar is Your Student Loans in COVID-19, Interest Waivers, Pausing Payments, and Other Options Available for Borrowers. My name is Amanda Martin and I'm the Executive Director of the Northwest Consumer Law Center. Tonight, we have Northwest Consumer Law Center Board Member Christina Henry with us, who will discuss an update about what relief the CARES Act provides for student loan borrowers. If you have questions during the presentation, please enter those in the chat box on your right. We will be answering questions after Christina's presentation. The slides of this presentation are available on the handout tab on your right. This session is being recorded and will be available on our website by tomorrow afternoon. Attending this webinar does not create an attorney-client relationship. This presentation provides legal information and is not a substitute for individualized legal advice. If you're seeking legal assistance, we recommend contacting the Northwest Consumer Law Center after this session. Information on how to apply for our services will be posted at the end of the webinar. And with that, I'll hand it over to Christina.
Thanks, Amanda. Welcome, and thank you for spending your late afternoon to learn about the CARES Act and what can be helped in student loans. So the first thing I want to cover today is whether or not the student loan that you are dealing with or helping other clients with actually is covered by the stimulus bill. The stimulus bill covered federal loans only. And those federal loans, even within that term, there's a subset of loans that are covered. And those federal loans are those that are held by the U.S. Department of Education that qualify for the relief package. Now, if your borrower has taken out student loans since after 2010, particularly Stafford loans, which are the normal kind of student loans that matter for Department of Education for this bill, if it's after 2010, they likely have loans that qualify. If it's prior to 2010, some of your students will have student loans that qualify if they've already consolidated them into a federal direct loan program. Or if they have not, then they probably don't qualify because they're part of the Federal Family Education Loan Program. In 2010, President Obama stopped that program, so all new loans are automatically with the federal government and they would qualify. For younger borrowers, it works. For older borrowers, if they don't know anything about their loan situation, they're probably in a category that's not covered. Also, you should know that federal Perkins loans, those are the kinds of loans that are somewhat handled by the school. Those are separate also, and they're not covered by the stimulus bill. So how will you know if they're covered? Or what can you do if they're not covered? Well, if you have an FFEL loan or a Perkins loan, you can take those loans and you can consolidate them into a direct loan with the federal government and the U.S. Department of Education. And you can do that now. Your clients can go ahead and do that whether they're current or if they're in default. If they're current, it's not really an issue, and that will immediately put them in the program where they won't have any obligation to pay their student loans until September, and they'll be qualified under the stimulus bill. If they are in default, you still can consolidate. And in many situations, it may be worthwhile to consolidate a loan in default because if your borrower doesn't have any ability to pay, they're in default anyways. And if it's been a long-term default, it may be your best option, especially if you don't think that they'll ever pay off the student loans. In other cases, you may want to try to do a rehabilitation, but at this point, with everything going on with the stimulus, that may be possible. You maybe get it to a small amount, so that's possible too. Either way, I have a link here. Studentaid.gov is the main website. It previously was studentloans.gov, so they've recently changed it if that's what you're aware of, or familiar with, if you happen to go to that website, you'll be sent back to studentaid.gov. If you go there, the pros and cons of consolidating Perkins loans, for instance, is right there, because in some cases, you don't want to consolidate your Perkins loan. There's some forgiveness programs for some of your borrowers that you don't want to get them out of by consolidating. To apply for a loan consolidation, it's actually quite easy. It's much easier than it used to be. And that link in the handout will take you right to the place to both create an account and apply for a consolidation application. If your client needs to create an account, have them do so a couple days before you meet them, because the government will have you set up an account and they'll do a check on the Social Security number. They'll have to get that Social Security number verified before they'll give your client a password, and you'll need that password before you can really help them. But once you help them, it's pretty straightforward. You go through the program online. So long as your client has paid taxes, they can pull in their last tax year, and that will have them apply for loan consolidation. If you're in a position where they made more money last year and now they're having a hardship, then when you go there, all you have to do is either send a last pay stub or a letter saying their current financial situation. If they were laid off or they're getting unemployment, you can send that in. All of those will suffice for a change of circumstances, and you can rely on that instead of on the tax return. Either way, it's a fairly simple process, and follow through with that right there, the link, and you can get them consolidated and into the stimulus program. So what is the stimulus program going to do for your clients? Well, automatically, the government has determined that there will be no interest that's accumulating on any student loans, and it will be no interest until September 30th, 2020. And this benefit is automatic for those loans that qualify, as we've just talked about. So repayment will be suspended until September 30th, 2020. If you have automatic payments taken out, that will be stopped, and no interest will accumulate. Your clients can still pay their student loans, and if they do, there's the one benefit that every payment will go directly to principal. Also, involuntary collection of student loans will stop. That means any wage garnishments or offsets, tax offsets of tax refunds, all of that will be suspended through September 2020. Further, at this point, they will refund up to $1.8 billion in borrowers' loans that was offset previously. I don't think they're going to go back before about March 13th. That's my understanding, but it still could be significant for your borrowers, especially if they recently filed their taxes. Also, another benefit is there will be no negative credit reporting on anybody's credit reports. They've also announced that all collection activity in any other way will also be stopped. So calls, letters, any defaults from any private collection company that's dealing with a federal debt on a U.S. Department of Education loan, they will not be able to collect on. However, to the best of my knowledge, those loans will still be collected on if they're FFEL loans or Perkins loans. You never know. I have a feeling that voluntarily they will stop that activity, but there's nothing in this stimulus bill that will stop them. So also it says that there was a prior bill that also said that if anything was withheld, you could ask for a forbearance. That was under the prior bill. Now my understanding is that's going to be automatic. But if for some reason it hasn't happened, still going in and asking for it and asking your loan provider and filling out their form if they determine that it's necessary, then go ahead and do so. I think I should also mention that Parent Plus loans are also included here. Additionally, if you're in a loan rehabilitation program, that is if you've been in default and you're trying to make payments on time so you can get out of default, there's a rehabilitation program that clients can do up to 10 months, 9 to 10 months on-time payments. If you had those arrangements, those will stop in their tracks. They will resume again after September. So everybody will get a break. You won't be kicked out of the program, but those months will still be counted toward rehabilitation. So if you're worried about when things resume, You can also just pay attention to when it happens and sign up for an income repayment program now. Do it based on your current income. If your income is low or the client has lost their job and has low wages, it's a perfect time to sign up for income-driven repayment plans. In fact, one of the things that I want to have everybody come out of this program with is that forbearance is not where you want to be sending your clients. You want to be sending them to income-driven repayment plans. And in some cases, for your lower income clients, their payments will literally be zero. If you're below a certain income threshold or you have a certain amount of dependents, you won't have to pay anything in your student loans. It really only tracks disposable income. So if your client's just making enough to make it, then that will be the situation. Unfortunately, that's one number across the country, so it's not determined based on Washington versus another state. So sometimes it doesn't help us because our clients still don't have any money, but because of the cost of living here, but the calculator may still decide that there's something that has to be paid. But generally, it's quite doable for most clients that I work with. In any case, this is the link here to bring your clients into an income repayment plan. Get that done prior to September. That way, when repayments start, they'll already be in the program. I'm going to have another word about private student loans. Private student loans are not covered by the stimulus bill. So if your clients have private student loans, they need to know that there's nothing in the government bill that stops payment. Some of those borrowers will still work with your clients to reduce payments or put them into some kind of grace period of forbearance. I just tell you to beware. There is nothing that says that that's not going to affect their credit, nothing that says that they're still not going to continue to increase interest and amortize it on the loan. And so there's really nothing that anybody can tell your clients that under any circumstances they're going to get relief on their private student loans. I can say that if you're helping someone, then one of the best things you can do is try to get it in writing. Don't just have your clients call up and ask for a forbearance. You want to get something in writing and a letter from the company. And if they refuse to give one, then after the conversation, you have your client write up what they told you and send it in by mail or fax so that you have a contemporaneous log of what they actually told your clients. You have something to go back to should it find out later that they don't abide by what they said they would do as far as a forbearance, because you have really nothing in the law helping you except for those agreements that they don't have to do. If your clients are already in default or struggling with student loans, sometimes your private student loan lender will try to get your clients to make $5 payments or $15 payments. They tell them that these are like good faith things to keep them in a good standing. It actually doesn't keep them in good standing. They've gone into default. It's not going to stop it. I tell clients all the time that if all you can make is a $5 or $10 payment, your best move is making no payments, because that $5 and $10 payment is just extending the statute of limitations. And sometimes the best thing you can do on a student loan, if your client absolutely can't pay the interest, can't pay the amounts, and they're not getting anywhere, is just to go into default. Now, a client's going to have to deal with those ramifications, but if they're already in default, they're just trying to appease the lender, my best advice is don't. Well, these are the main issues for today, and I'm really anxious to hear questions from everyone, and I'll take it from there.
Questions, go ahead and enter them in the chat box on your right. We already have a few that we'll start with. This is someone who has federal student loans, and their payments are set up to automatically come out of their checking account. They're wondering, will those payments automatically be stopped from coming out of their checking account right now? And what should they do if that payment comes out anyways?
If they are federal student loans backed by the U.S. Department of Education, either direct loans or originated with the federal government, they will be stopped automatically. So that is an easy one. If they aren't for some reason, you should be on it and calling them immediately to get that money refunded, but it should be automatically stopped.
Calling the bank or calling your federal student loan servicer?
Calling your federal student loan servicer.
Thank you. We have a few questions on here about public service loan forgiveness, and someone is wondering whether those 6 months of suspended payments will count towards those 10 years of payments under the public service loan forgiveness program.
Yes, that is actually something I should have mentioned. Yes, my understanding is even though there's no payments being made, they will count toward either the public student or public loan forgiveness program or any of the other IDR programs. They are counting as if you made those payments.
Also have someone asking about consolidation and public service loan forgiveness. Does consolidating your loans reset the clock on those public service loan forgiveness payments?
It does. So that's an issue. So if you have a public student loan repayment program set up and the public service repayment program set up with an FFEL lender, which is unfortunate, but if you are and you're several years in, then you may be in a situation where you don't want to stop those payments and you're going to want to keep going forward. I will tell you, just as a side note, if you are one of those borrowers, keep records. We're still having problems with that program.
Thank you, Christina. Some more questions about public service loan forgiveness. Someone asked specifically, are there hardship/income requirements? And are the loans automatically stopped or do you need to call? I'm guessing they're asking whether there's a hardship or income requirements for having your payments stopped.
So if you are a loan that is with the direct loans or with the or was originated with the U.S. Department of Education, you don't have to do anything. They're automatically stopped. If you have a loan that was taken out before 2010, you've never consolidated with direct loans, but you are under a public service loan forgiveness program, as far as I know, nothing in this bill will help you. So I will leave it up to the servicer to give you some advice, but I would be wary that anything here that would change the original contract is what you can do. However, I will say there is one thing. You always can recertify every year when you're in an IDR plan. If you have a hardship in the middle of the year, you can send in a letter saying that there's been a hardship or a loss of job and they'll recalculate. So that's really your answer. There's nothing that's special about the stimulus bill, but you can do that at any time. And that's one of the things you should do immediately. Usually also have to do it when you're not in default. So if you're under that situation, you need to do it now before you actually miss a payment, because they will usually make you bring the payment up before they'll change it to the hardship and reduce it.
Income-driven repayment applications. Is it a good time to apply while somebody's income is lower than it might normally be?
It is an excellent time, and there's a good reason for that. It goes for 12 months. No one asks you again about your income for 12 months. So if you're doing it right now when income is really low, do it. And then 12 months from now, if you've recovered and your income is a little higher, you're only going to have to deal with that higher income in month 13.
Or in
and
a
also,
public service loan
13,
forgiveness program, let's say they're in year 2 or year 3,
go
how they can
last
document
year's
that.
taxes.
And so that way they have everything in order when they get their 10 years.
Because it's the prior year for 2020 taxes and you're already having low income, you're going to get another year of lower income. So it's likely that even if this is a unusual situation for you, you're going to get you're going to get probably almost 24 months out of it at a lower income amount before you'd have to a certified amount that might be your more regular income going forward. So it's a very good time to do it. I will tell you a few things. If I was in a public service loan forgiveness program, I would go on automatic payments where they're taking them out. I would also suggest you have a bank account that's dedicated for just those payments. That way, if you ever have to produce anything, you have statements from every year that have nothing but that payment coming out, and it shows the date that it was paid. If you're under a public service loan forgiveness program, you have to make that payment within 15 days of the due date. Now, for other student loan programs, you could be up to 30 days, even a little more, and you're still going to qualify in your IDR payment. You're not going to be considered in default. But for public service loan forgiveness, if you don't make that payment within the 15 days grace period, it doesn't count as a qualified payment. So keeping track of records means if you're going to do it by check, I guess you're doing it that way. Bank statements, I don't personally want anybody to know everything else I'm spending. So I actually want a separate account that tracks nothing but that payment. And I think that's the best way to keep track for records. I noticed that somebody's having trouble hearing. You may have to hit a button. I don't know if that's everyone or just a couple people.
I would recommend, it seems like it's working for most folks. I would recommend restarting this program. And if you miss anything, we will be having the recording on our website. Christina, what I'll add for the public service loan forgiveness is that you can submit your employer certification every year, and you can get a letter from your loan certificator showing how many qualifying payments you've made. So I would recommend people in that program do that every year. So that way they can ensure that they and their loan servicer agree on how many qualifying payments they've made. Christina, you talked a little bit about forbearances as something you wouldn't recommend in most situations for federal student loans. Can you touch more on that?
Forbearances. Well, oftentimes clients call up and they go into forbearance because they can't afford the payment, and they ask the servicer for help with their payments. They're put into forbearance, and we tell borrowers that every month you're not paying just extends the amount of time that you have these loans to pay. These loans don't go away, at least until somebody comes in and decides that they're forgiven, and that would take an election to do it. So right now, as far as we know, the repayment and everything goes into Social Security. It's not going away. So most people, after a number of years of not paying, the interest compounds, it grows, and it gets to a point where they're never paying this off. So with that assumption in place, the best route is to be ticking off the years. So either it's 10 years in a public interest loan forgiveness program, or it's 20 to 25 years under a regular income-driven repayment program. And if you can't pay, you are sending in a hardship letter and explaining your current income circumstances, and that will help you at any moment in time in the IDR programs. However, your clients have to be on top of it. They have to recertify every year, and they also have to be on top of it if they get behind in a payment. Those are things that have to be done. But aside from that, it's much better than being in forbearance, because forbearance does nothing. It just grows, and the amount of time you're in it just continues.
A couple more questions for you. How will the payment suspensions for the federal student loans, will those negatively affect anyone's credit?
They will not. There will be absolutely no negative credit reporting until after September 30th, because everything is stopped, and no collection and no reporting is being done at all.
Yeah. Question for you, unless anyone else wants to add anything to the chat box. This could be a webinar in itself, but what should people do if they are sued on their private student loans?
If you're sued on your private student loans, well, Northwest Consumer Law Center will help with that. There are private attorneys that will help with that. I'm not here to advertise, but I take those calls regularly. And there are several other attorneys in the Seattle area and the state that do also. Those should be aggressively challenged and defended. Most of those student loans cannot be proven in court.
That appears to be our last question for the night. Thank you for answering those questions and for giving a great presentation. Join us for the other sessions in the Northwest Consumer Law Center webinar series, How to Survive the Financial Impacts of COVID-19, taking place every day this week at 6 p.m. Tomorrow, we'll be talking about debt collection and how to deal with consumer debt during a financial crisis. On Friday, we'll be talking about bankruptcy and considerations for filing. You can sign up online at nwclc.org/COVID-19. If you are seeking legal assistance for a consumer legal matter, you are welcome to contact the Northwest Consumer Law Center to apply for help. NWCLC is only able to help those of low and moderate income in Washington State. You can apply online at our website at nwclc.org/get-help or by phone at 206-805-1722. You can reach us by email at admin@nwclc.org. To support our work, you can make a contribution online at our website, nwclc.org. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and take care.
Thank you.